Happy New Year and welcome to the virtual opening for our first 2021 exhibitions. I'm Janice Cotter, the gallery manager at Pomo Arts. And before we start this evening, I'd like to express gratitude to the Pomo Arts Board of Directors, as well as say how thankful we are for the financial support of the Government of Canada, the province of British Columbia, and the eternal support of the City of Port Moody. They've been amazing. Although 2020 is behind us, we are really continuing to feel the effects of pandemic restrictions. But personally, I'm also feeling incredibly fortunate that I can still invite you to come to the gallery and to view our exhibitions in person. Our ED, Fatima Marshi, our team and our board continue to monitor Dr. Bonnie Henry's public health orders and to update our COVID safety plan accordingly so that our guests and our students can feel safe at Pomo Arts. We appreciate how supportive you've all been as we journey down this path together. Each year, Pomo Arts Gallery focuses on a different concepts that connects our exhibitions. In the past, we've had topics like community, gratitude, or in 2020, it was Ignite. For 2021, our emphasis will be on the stories that are inspiring artists and how these narratives are influencing their work. The past year has left an indelible mark on our hearts and our history, and I look forward to seeing and hearing the tales that our exhibiting artists will have to tell throughout the year. We are continuing to do hybrid exhibitions so that you can enjoy the artwork by visiting the gallery in person or in the comfort of your home with a virtual visit to the artist's exhibition page on Pomo Arts website. Each show has an online digital gallery that you can click on, then scroll through to see the artwork photos, the artwork details, as well as learning about the artists. You can also support our artists by letting other people know about their exhibitions or by purchasing artwork. And you can do that over the phone or in person when you're here visiting. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'm really excited to start our 2021 exhibition schedule with 3 solo exhibitions that run from January 14th until February 15th. Tonight, you're going to meet each of the artists, Sonya Iwasiuk, Ghislaine Brown-Kossi, and Matt Holmstrom. Then we'll show you a video of Sonya's artist talk, and afterwards she'll answer the questions she posts on Facebook. Ghislaine and Matt will let you know when you can, we're gonna chat with them for a sec, and they'll let you know when you can tune in to their artist talks. So first up, we'll start with Ghislaine Brown-Kossi. Ghislaine, it's really great to have you here this evening to give us a bit of a teaser about your exhibition and artist talk. Do you want to let us know, come forward and talk to us? Oh,
you can hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Hey guys, I'm Ghislaine Brown-Kossi. I'm a social artist. I make colorful painting who talk about relationship and communication between people. My exhibition, Are We Still Together, is an interrogation about the connection with ourselves and the world. And I translate that through beautiful bubbles, symbols, and colors. So I'm very grateful to show my work at the Port Moody Art Center, and I hope you will like it. My virtual artist talk is on January 21st at 7:15 p.m. So join us to talk more about my artworks. Enjoy the rest of the opening show and see you soon.
Thank you, Ghislaine. So now, give me a second here. And there we go. So now we're going to chat with Matt Holmstrom. Matt, do you want to unmute and come on down and tell us a bit about your show?
Hello, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
Can everyone hear me? Awesome, cool. So first off, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to exhibit at the Port Moody Art Center. I've shown some work there before, and it's one of my favorite places to visit. It's a very quiet and beautiful place to see some art. So thank you to Rachel and Janice for setting it up so nicely. When I saw the photos for the first time, I was very excited, and I can't wait to come in to see it for the first time myself as well. And also thank you to whoever made the digital website, because that looked amazing. Looked better than I could have imagined. So thank you very much for that. So my exhibition is called Timeless Pastimes, and it is a exhibition that shows imagery and sculptures about the pastimes that I grew up nurturing with my friends and family. I know that some of my friends and family couldn't tune in tonight because we started at the same time as the Vancouver Canucks Edmonton Oilers game, and that's one of the themes of my exhibition is hockey. It really does unify everybody I know. It brings excitement, and I know that people watching are probably from Vancouver right now, but I'd like to say go Oilers. So yeah, with this exhibition, it touches on some of these interests that I grew up loving, like hockey and art itself. Something else that I really grew a passion loving is flowers. I have an eye condition that creates a lot of floaters in my vision, and every time spring comes around and all the colors start popping, I get very excited and I just paint to my heart's desire all the colors that I see out there. So in this exhibition, you'll see some vibrant garden paintings, but yeah, and there's a lot more about the dreams that I had as a child growing up and dreaming of space and trying a lot of different mediums. So my full artist talk will be on January 28th at 7:15, and I hope you tune in. It'll be awesome to talk alongside the artwork itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you doing that. So right now, I am going to bring Sonya forward and we're going to chat with her for a second, and then we'll start the video for her artist talk. So Sonya, you're unmuted. Do you want to say a couple of words?
You can hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. That's great. So,
well, thanks everybody for tuning in. And I also want to thank Janice and her team, and want to thank Janice especially for inviting me to Pomo Arts to exhibit. And it's a beautiful space, and she really put the exhibit together so nicely. It looks so great. And really the video says most of anything I could say, and then there's a question of an answer period afterwards. So really I just want to give a lot of thanks to Janice and her team for putting this all together, and all of you who've tuned in. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Sonya. We're going to start playing. I'm going to share your video now, and we'll play that. It's about 23 minutes long, and then people can post questions on Facebook, and we will get you to answer the questions when the video's done.
Happily.
Okay, so let me just fix this screen here. Okay, here we go.
Hi there, I'm Sonya Iwasiuk, and we're here at
Hold on, no.
with my show
Sorry, I had to stop it because I realized I missed one step when I did the share, and I forgot to enable the sound on the computer. So my apologies for that technical glitch. We're going to start that share again. And this time we're going to...
Hi there, I'm Sonya Iwasiuk, and we're here at Pomo Arts in Port Moody with my show, New Resilience. I think a lot about world issues, and one of the things I think a lot about is migration. I think a lot about our new immigrants and how they've come from countries that are turbulent, war-torn, and they have to leave. They come to our country, and it's all new for them. The culture, the language, the food, the communities, and how they have to integrate into these communities and try to become part of the country, and how difficult that must really be. And so when thinking about this one day, I was thinking about my own history and my great-great-grandparents that came from Ukraine, and how difficult it must have been for them. And I was reading through our family history book, and there's just a few pages of their history coming from Ukraine. But when they came to Canada, they faced some of the things that our new immigrants face today, like prejudice and racism and other things like, culture shock. Ukrainian immigrants were often thought of as the kind of animals of the new immigrants. They were thought of to have diseases that were passed on. They were thought of to be the poor, ignorant immigrants. And there's a lot of prejudice against Ukrainians. Many of the immigrants would get financial help from the government. Some of them would get plow sharing with a plow and some sort of animal, but the Ukrainians got none of this. Often the Ukrainians would get the worst land possible. So that felt kind of similar as those hardships. I mean, nowadays, you're not going to find an immigrant coming to Canada and getting, the worst housing possible. But I feel like some of the things that new immigrants face were some of the things that my great-great-grandparents faced back then. So I want to talk about immigration using my family history. This piece is called Resilience in the Moon. And previous to this show, I had been gifted some old rusty metal roof tiles that they would use in industrial buildings. And I had used them for other various things. So I was running around looking all over the place for some rusty metal roof tiles and metal dumps and all over the place online, and I could not find them. So I thought, okay, how am I going to make my own? So I figured it out. I went to the metal superstore and I got an 8x4 sheet of steel. I got them to cut it, and then I figured out a way how to rust it myself. So that's what this is. And then what I did was, to get the images for this show, they're all licensed through various different museums or archives. And these are people, generally, some of them anyway. This one, I believe, is a photograph of, yes, this is a woman and her children in front of the building that they were building in Saskatchewan, I believe. Lots of times, and not all the time though, there were people that liked to take photographs of people coming off the boats, immigrants off the boats. And for a while, I thought that they were actually government employees, much like what happened in the United States during the Depression. The government hired photographers to go and photograph people. But not so. People would just kind of show up and take photographs at will. And we'll see one of those later on. But yeah, this one was a woman with her 2 children in Saskatchewan somewhere, and they had built up their farm, and I imagine they probably had a dairy cow and a couple of chickens, and they had a crop, and they'd saved some seed by then. I put on an applique of a milk jug here, and a moon. I love circles in my work. I love the moon. To me, the moon is a symbol of new beginnings. I know then that in Ukrainian, to the Ukrainians, there was a lot of circles in the embroidery of their beautiful kind of costumes or dance costumes. And I know that there was some sort of a symbolism or something like that to do with the moon with the Ukrainians as well. I couldn't figure out exactly what it was during my research. So resilience in the moon. The image of this little girl is called Strong and Free ? And that is referring to what we were talking about the immigrants that come to Canada and the Ukrainian immigrants who come from their land to a new world and experience racism, prejudice, and other hardships. This little girl came off the boat in Halifax. There is no date. We're not sure when she actually came off the boat, but her last name is Chobin, C-H-O-B-A-N. So if there's anybody out there with the last name Chobin, I chose this image because to me she seems like a strong little girl. She does seem solemn as well, but for some reason this image really drew me in. If you notice on this piece, there's a circle again. Again, I just love putting the circles in my work. I'm not sure exactly what they represent to me, except maybe new beginnings, hope. And they just, for some reason, really suit my work. Most of my work as well, I write into, including these pieces here. So this is little girl Chobin, right off the boat in Halifax. These rocks are made out of plaster and wire and acrylic, and I've etched into the plaster, and I've finished the rocks with glazes of acrylic. The etchings, well, first of all, the rocks symbolize the clearing of the land and the hardships that the families face. So on each of the rocks, you'll find vignettes of the family life, whether it's struggle. I think there's one here of them going to church. This one here, they're clearing the land. This is another one, clearing the land. So many of them are clearing the land because that was a huge chore for the family. Oh yeah, this one here, it's a rock pot. But there's two people standing here. There's a sun shining down on these people. There's a fence. So this one is a grave, actually. So in these rocks, I talk about loss as well, which is life. I talk about life in this rock pile. This piece is called Daydreams Under a New Sky. And I love the image of this little boy because he seems kind of reserved and insular, a little bit more fragile, maybe a little bit delicate. And you know, I'm thinking about, again, how he must have felt coming to this new place, totally out of his element, out of his home, but also the boat ride coming over. I've read a lot of stories about these people, the stories they have written about their journeys to Canada from Ukraine, and many times the boat rides were horrendous. Sometimes the beds were just bunk beds thrown together with rope, and they would sway back and forth. The food was horrendous, the service was horrendous. And most times, people were so heavy with seasickness that they would be strewn about the floor, heaving, and it was so packed with people just heaving with seasickness on the floor, and there was little ventilation. So if you can imagine, you know, 17 to 20 days on a ship like that. Also tempers flared, anxieties were high. So an environment like that for a child must have been pretty hard. So this really struck me, this image. So these wall hangings are made out of basically just acrylic, and I've embedded cheesecloth into them. A lot of people think they're glass or resin or something like that, but they're just plain old acrylic with cheesecloth. And the way that my method is, the way I've been able to make these, I've been able to do writing and all sorts of things into them, and of course color glazes as well. This piece is called Esther's Story, and it was a place called Esther. And you can see that there really isn't much here but a grain elevator, but there was a town here at some point. And that happens a lot on the prairies. So I have traveled the prairies about 3 times in the past 8 years. And what I do is I take about a week and I take my vehicle of choice, and it has some sort of camper on it. And I just travel around looking for these relics, homesteads, ghost towns, grain elevators, which are becoming fewer and fewer. I went home to my hometown 8 years ago or something like that. And the 2 elevators that kind of marked the town were gone. And I was literally devastated. Anyway, I found this town, Esther, that used to be there. And the elevator is still there. And it was a good place to stop. And so I parked my vehicle behind the elevator and I spent the night. And in the morning, I woke up with the sun. So in the summer, that's 5 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And I was surrounded by grazing deer. So that was pretty amazing. And so what I do in my travels is I just travel. I have no music on. I have my 2 little dogs with me. And we just search. We have no plan. We just kind of take whatever road that beckons me, really. And that really happens. I'll just suddenly feel like I need to take a road. And so often there is something at the end of the road that is just this fantastic discovery. And then I document the area. Sometimes I'll spend time there. And what happens for me is sometimes I have lunch at the homestead or in the ghost town, and we'll walk around, and I just feel like this little video kind of goes off in my head of times past. And I can almost see what used to be, you know, people and kids on bikes and, you know, the way things used to be, probably thanks to Little House on the Prairie. But anyway, that's what happens to me, and it just really fills my soul. So this is Esther's Story, and it's done again on the rusted metal, and this one is mixed media painting on top. And yeah, one of my favorite places, for sure. This piece is in Saskatchewan. Now, most people don't believe me because there's hills, but there are hills in Saskatchewan. It is not 100% flat. So this is an area called Cypress Hills in Saskatchewan. And it is a beautiful, beautiful area. And it, you can see there's beautiful rolling hills down into water. I found these areas of conglomerate cliffs in Cypress Hills. There's just so much to Saskatchewan that people don't realize. Anyway, hills in Saskatchewan. This is called A Gaze Away. There are so many old homesteads all over the prairies. In Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, that are just left as these stoic kind of relics to the past. And I just love coming upon them and again, imagining what was. This house I particularly loved, and I did a few different variations of this house, and I just thought it was the coziest, most beautiful little house. And I mean, I can imagine living here. I love this little house, the old home. This was a church I found, this one here, just in the middle of a prairie. I mean, there's nothing else around, absolutely nothing. I don't even think there was a telephone pole. And here's this beautiful little wooden church. It's probably over 100 years old by the way it's built and how it was so broken down. A mountain on the prairie. Well, this is actually a little bit kind of zoomed in. I was driving back home towards, I think I was close to the Alberta border, and I saw this weird little mountain thing way off in the distance at the end of this prairie on the horizon in the USA. So I thought, oh, I'm just going to paint that. And this one is called, what's this one called again? Wind That Shakes the Barley. There's always a wind on the prairie, it never stops. So this wall here is all found metal. These pieces were an amazing find. I love it when I find metal. I will stop on a highway if there's enough room for me just to pick up a piece of metal. I tromp through the forests and I will have a backpack full of metal, tetanus in a bag. Anyway, so this, I decided to go down some little dirt road towards a railway track, and I found a pile of this amazing metal. So I'm not sure what this metal was used for, if it was indeed used for anything to do with a railway, maybe the switch or something like that, I was thinking. I tried to research it online, but I couldn't find anything. But I just knew that this would make a perfect substrate for a painting, and it did. These are amazing. These are pressed tin roof tiles. So you can't really see the pressed shape right now, but there's a bit of a kind of a double arrow shape almost. This is kind of raised here, and this is raised on each side here, like an embossed shape. And again, I just knew, so the tile would fit, the tiles would fit here. So if I took this off the wall, it would fit right into there. And again, I knew that that would make a perfect substrate, especially for this series, you know, the rustic series, for a painting. And I just want to talk about this house a little bit. This house was a great find because sometimes when I drive up on a property, well, it's not my property, and so somebody will come driving up, because they're not used to visitors, and say, hey, what are you doing? And I'll start talking about what I'm doing, and I meet really cool people. And so this house was, this fellow and his son came up, and it was his parents' house, and they had lived there for years and years. And they would still come back for the summers. And they took me to their farm across the road, and we had, you know, a good hour visit. This here was an old hospital in a town called Robsart, Saskatchewan. This here, a hospital. I just love it. Anyway, that's that little series there. Found metal. This piece is called When Night Falls, and twilight is one of my favorite times. My son and I go for twilight walks all the time. This, again, is in Cypress Hills. And trees. Yes, there are trees on the prairies. In Cypress Hills, I believe there were First Nations that lived in Cypress Hills. There's another area that I visited quite a bit called Grasslands National Park, which is right on the border. And walking through grasslands, it was much like the other Cypress Hills painting we saw a gaze away. It was more kind of like that, the grasslands area. And you could find teepee rings everywhere. So the First Nations would build their structures, and they would hold down the canvas or furs or whatever they had with rocks. And then when they pulled up their teepees, they would just, well, they're not going to move the rocks anywhere. So they would just be left. So you find teepee rings everywhere. So I just wanted to say something about that, I guess, because when I do travel around the prairies, I'm so conscious of who is here before us. And I often will imagine what things were like before we came, actually. Sometimes, you know, I'll venture out and I'll be hiking around and I'll see a rock kind of on a bluff, and I'll think, that must have been a good place to do some flint knapping. So flint knapping is when you make arrowheads and spearheads and stuff like that. And I'll kind of sit and I'll look around and I'll find evidence of flint knapping. So, I mean, they were here before us, and I don't know, I guess I like to acknowledge that as well. And the land is just the same in some places. This piece is called Where Kindness Springs. And I love the parts of the prairies that feel untouched, that haven't been farmed. I love walking through these wild grasses, and there aren't many areas left. And they smell so sweet. And the wind is always blowing there. The first time I went, I actually took my paints and an easel thinking I was going to paint, but there was no way I could because the wind was always blowing. And so I walked through these grasses, and they're up to my hip almost, and my dogs are small, and so they're bounding and bouncing, trying to see over these grasses next to me, and the smell is magnificent. There's no smell like it. It's one of my favorite smells in the world, and the sun is on my back like a warm blanket. And it's just one of the most blissful feelings in the world for me. I could stay in a place like this all day. And I just wish people could experience the prairies. I tell people I'm going for a vacation to the prairies and they think I'm crazy, but it's where I love to be. This sculpture is called Mother. She is made from wire, plaster, and acrylic that I've etched into her. And when I was making her, actually, she really started to come to life for me. And I would say hello to her when I came into the studio and goodbye when I left at night. And she became a being. I made her because women, I think still today, were really a mainstay on the farms. And often, actually, men had to go off and work to make extra income for the families. And so the women, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but a lot of times the women would be the ones clearing the land as well and planting the crops and bringing the crops in, as well as planting and bringing in the garden, taking care of the livestock, taking care of the children, the household, bringing in and making sure the seed for the next year is taken care of, doing all the canning and preparation of food for the winter. So the women were extremely strong, hardy, hardworking, formidable people. And I'm just thinking about my grandmother right now, and her forearms were huge, just huge. She was such a strong woman. And my mother even, because she grew up on the farm as a child, and they had all these chores they had to do. And she was so strong as well. So that's what this sculpture is all about, just the strength of women and how they hold households together. Of course, once the farming family started to build up their homestead, they would initially build some little sheds like this. My grandfather did that. And then they built a barn, if they were lucky, and they were able to get enough money together. And often the communities would come together to help build each other's barns. So my grandfather had a barn very much like this, and there was a ladder going up to the open loft after the barn was not being used anymore and the farm was abandoned, but we would go out there all the time to visit the farm and to play. And I would play in that loft all the time. And then my uncle took over, and he had cows and pigs. And there was a point where I cleaned a little pigsty for him with the little piglets, and I fell asleep with the piglets. And I would fall asleep on this one brown cow, sometimes in the sun. That was my childhood. So you can see that this show really is about my childhood. And I mean, I love barns, and I think a lot of people do. They still stand on the prairies, again, as these kind of statues of the past. And I just do want to mention, too, that you did see these tiles already, these stamped tin roof tiles. So I do make smaller pieces. This is another beautiful barn, beautiful white barn, totally different type of roof. I don't know what kind of roof this is. And then I do want to mention, too, that I do make small pieces so that everybody can have art in their house. These are little 6x6s, so they're not all huge pieces. So big barn, little barn. Thank you so much for coming to the Pomo Art Gallery on this journey with me through my show. It's so nice to see it up. I want to thank Janice for having me and putting the show up so beautifully. And I want to thank Caitlin for filming this today. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
Hello there. We are back, and we will now get to talk a bit to Sonya. Sonya, thank you very much. The video turned out great. We haven't done a lot of videos, so it was a really fun experience for Caitlin and I. And thank you so much. Thanks for being so accommodating. So we have some wonderful comments on Facebook. We didn't have questions, but we do. Let me just see if I can get some comments up here. And oh, you know what? We've got a wonderful turnout tonight. First of all, I have to say thank you to so many people for showing up. We have our board president, Kathy Chenna. We have our past president, Valerie Simons. Zoe Royer is our a city councilor rep with the city of Port Moody, and she is the head of the Arts and Culture Committee and our liaison. And she's asking if the gallery is open for in-person viewing, and it most definitely is, Zoe. So I hope you'll come by. Sonya, we've had quite a few comments. We have one person in particular who is originally from the prairies. Now I'm not sure if she's still living there, Regina Gray. And is that someone you know?
Yes, we went to school together. We grew up together.
Oh no. Okay, I have to get this so that we are on gallery screen here. Hold on here. So that we can go to gallery view so that we can both talk here and be seen. So you went to school with Regina.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, you'll have to go and check the Facebook page out after, because she made a lot of lovely comments and just really said some very nice things about your work. We've also had other comments. There's quite a few people coming to see the show. And I know that, let me just check if there's, oh good, Zoe's going to come and see your show. That's nice. And Regina says that, she says, I agree, this beautiful work brings back memories of Manitoba for me for sure. So
Manitoba.
Well, that's what she said. Oh, she's originally from Manitoba, she said.
Oh, I didn't know that, Regina. So am I. I don't know if you knew that either.
She says, coming from Manitoba and from a Ukrainian background myself, your art really resonates with me. Sonya, I can't wait to visit the gallery when traveling is allowed. So you'll have to connect when you go. You can check out on Facebook and the comments that people have made, and they really seem to enjoy the stories in your video. And you were kind enough to give me some of the artwork stories, and I posted those with the artwork. And then of course we have posted your statement about your concept for a new resilience, as well as your grandparents' story, so your family story. I don't know if you want to go a little bit into that. We didn't touch on that in the video.
We could if you want, sure. So yes, my great-great-grandparents came from Ukraine in June of 1900. And it's kind of an interesting story because they were put on a plot of land. And then after 4 years, so, after they had cleared some of it and built it up and all that kind of thing, the government representative came back and said, oops, we're sorry. We put you on the wrong piece of land. It's somebody else's land. So you're going to have to move. So my great-great-grandparents were so upset and disheartened that they just wanted to leave the whole entire area. They didn't even want to be in the area anymore. They had become quite good friends with First Nations people that would go by their homestead, journeying to do trading and stuff like that. and were able to develop a sort of communication. Even though they couldn't speak each other's languages, really, they could communicate. And so these friends, these First Nation friends of theirs, basically said or communicated, hey, we know of some good land, follow us. And so they packed up their stuff and trusted their friends and followed them from, so they were initially put on a piece of land by Redwater in Alberta, and they followed them to an area called Sacred Heart. And then an area called Sacred Heart, and a place that initially, I think, inevitably was called Stry in the end, S-T-R-Y. And so the story goes that they were, traveling through this land, and it was, kind of rolling hills and stuff. And my great-great-grandfather decided to stop on a piece of land that most people in the area thought wasn't the best piece of land, but he stopped because when he went through a creek on the property, the fish were so plentiful that they were flipping through the wagon wheel spokes and landing on the banks of the creek or the stream. So he thought that the stream would be good to them. So he decided to stay there. And that was their little story.
Well, over the last few days, we've had people coming in and looking at the exhibition, even though we were still putting up some labeling and titling, that type of thing. But I have to say that anyone who had a prairie background has just been mesmerized by the images. So it's,
well, even watching the video for me, and even, doing the video, at one point I did get a little bit emotional, right?
yes.
And even just watching this video again, like I kind of got hit, because it is such a beautiful place.
Yeah. I think the stories really help to bring everything to life.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that you were so open and willing to share stories that were so personal.
I think we should do it more often.
It's a good thing.
And if you want to know more about the pieces, some of the pieces do have little stories, and they are written on the website. And Janice, was it you that did the website?
The digital gallery, yeah, that was me.
Amazing. So if you go to, is it pomoarts.ca?
Yeah, actually, you know what we did at the beginning of this Facebook recording, we posted links to each of the artists' exhibition pages on the Facebook in the comments. So people can click on it, and then they just scroll down your page, go and click on your digital gallery, and they can see every piece of work that is in the exhibition is in your digital gallery.
Well, the digital gallery is just, you guys did a beautiful job. So if anybody out there is interested in seeing the pieces a little bit more close up and reading the little stories I wrote about them, Janice did such a good job with this digital gallery as well. And then you could read more of the full story about the whole show as well. I had such fun writing the little stories about the pieces as well. So
that's nice. Well, I'm glad you were accommodating for my my overall theme this year of stories. I thought yours were very good. They definitely were fabulous. We have another artist who will be exhibiting later this year, Garrett Andrew Chong, was on tonight. He had mentioned to me that he would be watching it. And he said several of his friends are of Ukrainian descent, and he's referred them to your exhibition. So that was really nice. And Valerie Simons, one of our past board president, said that she feels such a personal connection to these pieces through your stories. So I think that really makes a difference for people to hear the stories.
I do. And like I was saying to you at one point too, sometimes on some of my pieces, I will write just little a sentence or two, like little stories on the back. I just feel like I kind of need to for some reason, because I am a storyteller. And, you know, each piece that I paint is a story. Even the piece behind me is a story. That's my Uncle Glenn playing an accordion. You know, that's part of my family history again. So I'm all about the stories, whether they're mine or, you know, somebody else's. I think most artists, or a lot of them anyway, are storytellers.
And Sonya's coming to us this evening from her studio in the Parker Street Studios in Vancouver. And with COVID, they weren't able to do the East Side Culture Crawl in quite the same way this year. So you weren't able to have people in the studio at all during the
No, not
crawl.
really, not really. So I didn't really, well, I didn't see anybody during during, I always call it the crawl that didn't happen.
Yeah. Oh well, we're all hoping by the time we get the jab in our arm this year that we'll all be able to do these types of things like the East Side Culture Crawl next year,
Oh,
and the Parker Art Salon, two of my favorite events of the year.
me too. I really miss those.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, I think I would recommend that you go and have a look at the Facebook page after for the event and see all the wonderful comments. Some people you may know Sonya, and some may be new people. So it's always interesting to connect and just see the lovely things people are saying.
Oh, that's
And
great. Thank you.
yeah. Did you want to make any other comments or say anything else?
Well, again, I guess I just want to say thanks to everybody that helped out with the putting together of this. I mean, it's a lot more work to put things together this way, for sure. So thanks to everybody, and thanks, I don't know who is out there. So it's such a strange thing because, you know, usually at an opening, you can mingle with people and chitter and chatter and talk about your pieces. And, you know, I'm just kind of sitting here in my studio in quiet, wondering who's out there and what they're thinking. So I am looking forward to seeing the comments on Facebook later. And the other thing I do want to say is with my pieces and with, you know, much art, photos really don't do them justice because they are mixed media on rusted metal. So yeah, if you do like what, you know, like these pieces, you know, I suggest you do go to Pomo Arts to see them because they are kind of more interesting, I think, up close. What do you say, Janice?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. As beautiful as your photos are, they just can't do them justice. When we had people in the gallery today looking at Strong and Free, they were walking, it's right in the middle of the space, so they're walking all the way around it and looking through it from the back and from the front. So
yeah, you can't really see the size of it via the video as well. Either.
That's right. Yeah. Also, our current board president, Kathy Chena, just loved your stories. She says they're great stories, Sonya, and thank you for sharing. And we have Anne Susie, who's commented that she was glad she popped in to hear this. And Melissa Sim was in the gallery earlier, and she's commented that it was interesting to see how you use the cheesecloth and acrylic for some of your pieces. But she actually was here earlier today. So these are all things you can check out when you go read the Facebook.
Thank you.
So right now, I just want to reiterate that you can support the artists by sharing information about their exhibitions and inviting people to view it online or in person in the gallery. And you can also support the artists by purchasing artwork. It can be done also in person or over the phone. Pomo Arts is a nonprofit society, and when our memberships, your memberships help to support us. And with each, if you have a membership, then one of the benefits is to be able to have an artist profile on our artist directory. And each of our exhibiting artists also has an artist profile on the directory. So those are just some of the benefits of being a member. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I'm so glad to see everyone. Sorry, I got a hair in my mouth there. I'm so glad to be back in 2021 and looking forward to a bright new year and all the amazing exhibitions and stories that we'll have to hear throughout the year. So next week, we are back with Ghislaine Brown-Cossey for his artist talk and tour, and we will stream live from the gallery. So I hope you'll join us at 7:15 next Thursday. So good night all. Sonya, I'll get you to stay on the line for a minute, but I'm going to say good night to all our viewers. Do you want to say good night?
Everybody, good night. Thank you.